Hi guys, welcome to this session on Microsoft Visio. In this module, I want to go through how to create flowcharts, a basic flowchart and a cross-functional flowchart. So I'm on the new screen and you can see the flowchart, cross-functional, basic flowchart are sitting down here. Doesn't matter which one you go in because you get the stencil of the other one as well. So I'll go into the basic flowchart, just double click on that and it creates a blank flowchart. You can also stop and use one of the wizard options if you wish. So you have a stencil down the left hand side which is the basic flowchart shapes, and then the one below is the cross-functional one, which I'll do in a second. But these are the two that I'm going to do today. Obviously you've got options to search for things if you want. Now there's a couple of ways that you can create a flowchart. Normally you start with an start and end shape, and you can have the connector tool on, or you can use the actual connection tools that's on the shapes themselves. So if I just push this onto the screen, you'll see what I mean. So there's a start and end. When you hover over that shape, you get these little arrows which gives you these four options, so you can quickly build up with the connections on the sort of diagram that you want. Alternatively, if you want to bring a process on manually, you can do it like so. If I delete that one off, but if I connect this on, or click this on and do that, it will automatically connect up a similar way as the default. Well, it will if I click on the shape and then do it. So the shape's active and then drop it in like so. So that's one way you can do it, or the other way is this one. Now, to build up a flowchart, obviously you need to know what you're trying to achieve. So I've got to start there, and then these are process, and then you've got these decision options. So it doesn't matter which way you do it. Decision, and then a process comes out of each end of that decision, and then you carry on with your flowchart going down until you get to the end. So then you're selecting the end. Once you've done all that, you can connect up this. This is a circle I'm going to do here, so it's going back to the beginning, connecting up to this, and then this becomes a yes/no decision point. And then now you put the information in, so I'll go induction for the title or the start, and then we've got admin, and then there's a yes/no here, so I'll just put paperwork. Has the person turned up with the correct paperwork? So yes, double click on the line, he carries on. No, he goes there and he has to review the paperwork, so I'll just call that review, and then he goes back to admin and goes around in that loop. So after that it's going to be finance, and then production maybe, and then start work. Start. So it's a very simple flow. Don't forget you've got design options. You can put backgrounds on this, and you can put borders and shading on this as well, or titles. So I'll just put the globe on and I'll get a title, that one. So remember now the title, because I've got that sitting there, is sitting into the actual flowchart, so I'll just pull that down a little bit and you can just move these down. The connections should just keep themselves nice and neat, like so. Okay, remember the title is not on this page, it's a background page. You have to go onto the background page to put the title in, induction. The date can stay the same, and back to the foreground page, ready to carry on. So if this process goes on to a second page, you've got these shapes, off-page reference, where you can bring them on, and it hyperlinks to the next page. In this case there isn't one, so it's going to create one, new page. Okay, and then you can just move this to wherever you want it, double click it, and it will take you back to the other page, like so. So that's quite straightforward. Back to page one. Now if you want to create your own hyperlinks, you have to basically name these shapes, use names on these shapes. So if I just go through that process, first thing I'm going to do is create some shapes, or a shape, on page 2. So first bring a shape on. What you need to do, whatever you're going to hyperlink to in Visio, you need to name so you can hyperlink to it. Now to name a shape you need to go to the developer tab, and if you haven't got the developer tab on, if you just right click on any tab and go to customize ribbon, you can then tick it on. That's it, same in Excel and Word and all the others. So on there you've got shape name. If I click on shape name, you've got the information for this shape, and there you can see the shape name. So if I type my name there, Steve, I will then be able to hyperlink to Steve. Click OK to that. Go back to page 1. I'm going to draw a couple of shapes. So if I go back home, rectangle shape, just draw a little rectangle, and then from there, if I click back to the pointer tool and then insert link, you get the option there. So that top option is a web address. This address I need to just browse, and it's on page 2, and the shape is called Steve. Now it's got default zoom there, so you can select one of these options if you want. I'll go 200% so it just jumps up a bit. Click OK to that. OK again. Now when you hover over there, it says use control and click. So control and click, you get the little hand symbol, and then it's jumped to that and zoomed it as well. Come back to page 1, do another little box, go home. This one I will do a web address, so insert link. So the top option, 1, 2, 3, my web page. So that's just going to go there. OK. Again, you get the little, take this tool off, back to pointer, control down, click, and then it will open up that web page, which you can there see it's opened. And then obviously you just put whatever you want on there. It's easy. And then that could be HR or whatever, HR department, whatever you want to do. So you can create a series of hyperlinks on your front screen to get you through all these extra pages you might create on the flowchart. So that's how you create those. Now each of these shapes, if I click on them, I've got the default shape data, which is this list here, and if you want to change any of this, you can right click, go into data, define shape data, either delete these or add a new one. If you want the order to change, you just basically click on the one you want. So let's say I want the owner, I would put that, because the owner is third, I would put a 1 in there, and then that would sort that to the top. Owner would go to the top like that one. But you'd have to do that first, because all the shapes are going to come with a default set. Now that's the basic flowchart. If I go onto a page 2, in fact I'll create another page, page 3, you can name these pages. So if I just double click on page 1 and call it main, and then page 2 link, and then page 3 can be cross, because that's what I'm going to do on this one, cross. So to do the cross functional flowchart, click on this stencil and you have a series of swim lanes. So I'm going to pull one on which has a function, and it gets its own little title, so it might clash a little bit with that. So I'll bring 4 functions on so you can see how they work, like so. And the idea with this is that you can have processes that go over multiple departments, for example. So if I go admin, HR department, sales and production, and then you just build it up in the same way with your basic shapes. So you go back to these basic shapes, you still have a start, and then now you've got to be careful when you're using these tools that come out this lot, because it's going to cause potentially a problem. I'll try and see what happens here. Look, so there's a process. I want that process to go over 2 swim lanes. So at the moment it's let me do that. Now if I bring a process on there, and let's say that's going to go over 2 swim lanes, everything's looking cool at the moment, and then another process in sales, and then a final process in sales but going over 2 swim lines. So that's okay, everything works okay. I'm going to connect it back up, so you can connect it however you want. Oops, got the wrong thing there. Connection point to connection point, connection point, and finally connection point to that one, and then I need an end. So start end goes there, and then you get the connection point coming in there. So that's the flow. If I take the pointer tool or click the pointer tool back on, you can swap these around if you don't like the way it's connected up. Get it to connect up wherever you want to. Change the line thickness if it's not standing out too well, because obviously the swim lanes are quite prominent. And if you change the line color as well, that might help. Now I don't want to keep doing that, so if I use the format pane to double click on it to keep it on, and then I should be able to click on these lines and just copy the format across. So I've got a quick way of doing it. Take that off. Now to number these shapes, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you need to use the shape numbering tool, which is on the View tab and Add-ons and Visio Extras, number shapes. No idea why it's sitting there. Number shapes. So start with 1, yep. Interval of 1, yep. So, and I'm going to do it manually. I have got the auto number thing there, but that would basically number all of these boxes. I don't want to do that, so I'm just going to click OK with that one, and then it's a case of just clicking the order. So click the start position like so, and it puts the numbers in like so, and then close. Now that's okay, but the problem with that is when you want to type, you've got to get below that number, otherwise you'll just overwrite the number. Or you do the number, you do the text first and then the number afterwards, and it sits it nice and neatly. So I'll just put that, I'll just show you that one. So I'll bring another process on. Let's go back to that numbers. In fact, before I do that, I need to type something. I'll just type my name, Steve, and click on it. Start at 7, okay. So there you go, 7, and it's not overwritten the text. But if you do it the other way around, so if I just click on that and type Steve, it's got rid of the number. Now if you do lose a number like that, for that reason, when you go back into it, you just go Visio Extras, Number Shapes, change this to start at 1, and go through the process again. So 1, 2, see it's put it above there now. 3 is okay, 4 is okay, 5 is okay, 6 is okay, close. So what am I saying here? Do the text first, then do the shape numbering afterwards. Now I'm just clicking onto a new page. It's got a link for one more. You can bring external data into the flowchart template and build a flowchart from data that you already have. So I've clicked onto the data tab, and I'm just going to import some data that I've got in an Excel spreadsheet. So there you go, Visio Excel link. You follow the wizard through, it just imports the data, click done, and then the data appears here, and then you've got some data graphic fields as well. So what you have to do is you click on the field, the shape type that you want the field to be. So I want a start first of all, then you drag on the field. It's a linked field, so if this data in Excel changes, this will update. Notice it's got the budget figure there, That's the data graphics, so it's coming across there. You've got the budget figure in there in Excel. Now what I want now is coord teams. That needs to be a process, so I just click on process, drag that in, and it drops that one in. Now if I go and click on the connected tool, so I don't have to come back and do this, so develops product is going to be a process as well, so pull that one in. Now I'll get the data graphic and the connector coming up, so market and then sell. So I'll just bring these across with the connector tool on. The data graphic is filling in. Last one, like so. Didn't mean to do that. I had them all selected. Decided not to do the connection. There we go. Do the connection on that one. Take that off. So what you've now got is some data that is linked to an Excel spreadsheet, and there's the data itself, and data graphics sitting on there. Remember data graphics, data, advanced data graphics, you've got them, these options there. These are all the data graphics. You can edit these if you want. If you pick one, pick that one. It does not contain any data, okay. But you can delete these or change these, or if you want to, if you click on A shape, you've got these tick options. So if I highlight all of them, I might want to put process name on there. So process name, develop strategy, along with all the other information there, budget. Now the labels seem to be on here, so if I go, this is the one, edit, data graphics, so status, if I edit that one, top right, everything is okay there. That's just an icon, isn't it? Let's leave that one as it is. Budget, edit, label, don't want the label, not shown, okay. Process name, edit that one, label, not shown. You don't have to do this, but apply, okay, so that looks better. And you can obviously, through that edit feature there, you can position these so it sits inside the data if you wish. At the moment it's all on the right. If I go and do that, edit, status, edit, it's right. Let's go left, top, okay, apply, and then next one, budget, edit, let's go left, middle, yeah, okay, and then process name, edit, we'll get the defaults off, we'll go left, bottom. See what that looks like. Might have to play around with it. Okay, now I need to change the font because I can't see it. Change the font color to white. It's not letting me do it all together, so I'm going to have to do it bit by bit. So if I zoom this up a little bit, yeah, so the icon needs to be on the right, so that's what I'll do. I'll put the icon to the right. The little ticky boxes in the way. So data, edit, that one. That's on the left. I'll put that to the right, top right. Okay, okay. That's better, so it's not in the way. Okay, let's go for design then. Let's see if I can change the design. No, that one. That's better. Except that one. And that one. Okay, so this is a linked flowchart. Again, you can take the data graphics off if you don't want them on. So we've done cross-functional flowchart, nice colour scheme. We did a hyperlink to this shape, and then we started off with this basic flowchart and just did a background and a title on it. Remember, the titles are a background page, and every page I've inserted, so this one there, so if I call this page external, that's an external page. This background is a background page for all of these foreground pages. Now if I go into design and just show you that, page setup, background, this is what we're on, but if I come on to one of these other ones, I'll right click this time, page setup, this is a foreground page and it's looking at that background page. So if you do it correctly and insert the background page straight away, or do your own background page, it automatically links up, which is great. But that's all I want to talk about on this little session. So we've covered basic flowcharts, cross-functional flowcharts, hyperlinks, and bringing external data from Excel and as a flowchart and using shape data in that flowchart. In this module, I want to show you how you can use Visio to create a Pert diagram and find a critical path. So on the screen you can see a photograph of what I'm going to recreate in Visio. So in these types of diagrams you have an event, which is this bit, and then an activity, and then an event and an activity. And in these numbers, basically the 10s, the 20s, the 30s and 40s are just event numbers. And then what you've got here is the earliest event time and then the latest event time. And then this 0 is the float, which becomes the critical path. So if the float is 0, that is the critical path. So in this example, this is the critical path because this task, prep cups, can happen anytime during this 5-minute period. So it's got there a float of 4 minutes, so anytime it can happen. And then this dotted line just represents a dummy line to get back into the main flow. So these sort of shapes are not default in Visio, so we're going to have to recreate one of these shapes, and that's what I'm going to do on the next sheet. Now I've already done that, and I've got a stencil with some shapes in here you can see there. If you don't know how to create a stencil, it's basically more shapes, new stencil, and that's it. That's all you have to do, and then you drag your shape, whatever you do, onto that stencil and it will be there for future use. So if I just close that, I don't want to save that because I've got mine here, Steve Projects, and I've got a node. These are called nodes that I'm going to use for this diagram, but I need to recreate that. So if I just bring this one onto the screen, I'll just show you how I created it. That's the structure, if you like, of the node that I want. Now Visio does provide a Pert diagram as part of the scheduling package, and you get things like this, but I don't want to use this type of box. I want to use this circular system, so I'm just going to get rid of that, and then I'm going to recreate this. Now to get this I need a circle. Now I know for a fact if I go more shapes, general, in basic shapes, there is a circle. So I've just added that stencil to this template, and then I can bring a circle on. So there's the circle. I don't want a fill on that, no fill, but I want the line to be a bit fatter than that. The line can be blue, and the weight of that can be 1 1/4, 1 1/2, is it? Yeah. So that's the circle I want. Now I need these diagonal lines, and I'm going to use a line tool up here to do that. So you get these little glue points coming straight through the middle to the other side, glue it on, and the same at the top, just go straight through the middle, glue it on. Take the line tool off, back to the pointer tool, highlight that circle, and then I want to group that to make it all one thing. So now that's all one thing. Now I need to do these text boxes. So a text box is a text tool, so you just draw a text box in the circle. Just come back to pointer, text there. Now you will have to put some text in there, so I'm just going to put 10. Now that's very small, so just go back to the pointer tool. I want that to be bold, and I want that to be black. Now you can make that a bit bigger and adjust the box if you want. If I go for 10 points, that's bigger than that even. Let's go for 12 points. 12 point looks okay. Then I'm just going to do Control D, Control D, Control D 3 times just to get 3 more text boxes, and just position these into these segments like so. That's lined up. Looks pretty good. Then I'm going to group all of those so it's all grouped again. So now it's all one shape. And then I can leave that 1 0. So usually start it with 10 and go 20, 30 and so on like that. But these all need to be 0, so I just need to change that to 0, and that to 0, and that to 0. So that's how you create the shape. So I'm happy with that. If you go back to mine, and then to add it to your stencil, so if you've just got a new stencil, you just click on it and move it into the stencil. I'll just call this test because I've already got one that I'm going to use. So test 22, that'll do. Then you know which ones are which. So some of these are a bit old. So now if I just delete this one, the process to do your project is as follows. You bring your first position onto your screen, and then you can either put the connector tool on now and then it will automatically connect to it, but sometimes that starts going all over the place, but I'll do that and you will have to correct it afterwards. So the connector tool's on. So that's the first event. Now I want a second event, and in between there needs to be an activity. So the activity is where you put the text. So I'll put a text box in there, and the first activity is fill the kettle, or fill. And you need to put the time in there. So fill 1 minute. Now if I just knock that back off, and let's make that bold as well. Or I can make everything bold at the end and black. So that's 1 minute. So the way this works is, this box here is the earliest event time. So that is going to be 1 minute. So I need to put 1 in there. So just double click on that, get rid of that 1. So that's 1 minute. So that first thing takes 1 minute. Fill kettle. So now I need to do another mode, which is going to be boil the kettle. I'm going to go over one page here, but it doesn't matter for this. So this is going to be boil. I didn't have the connector tool on, so I can put it on now. Snap it in place. Text box. Above that, I don't want the text box on the line, so it's just going to be boil, and that's going to be 5 mins. 5 min. 5 min. Back onto the pointer tool. Now while that's happening, so that's now 1 plus 5, so this needs to be a 6. 6. So that's took 6 minutes so far. I'll change the font on this later on. But now while it's boiling, this is where you can have other things going on. So I want a shape to come out of this shape and then reconnect back into there. I haven't numbered these, so this needs to be 20. And then I'll just drag another shape on. Push it up there a bit. Connect it up. It just connects straight up. And I want it to come straight down back into there, and this one needs to be a dotted line because it has no time. So if I just go to line, dashes, pick these ones, I'll do that a bit thicker. Actually the lines all need to be a bit thicker, so I'll put that to 1.5. I'll change this one as well while I'm at it. 1.5, like so. And that one, I don't think I did that one either. 1.5. So if you want, you can add these sort of things to your stencil, so you don't have to keep doing this sort of thing I'm doing now. So this is going to be 30. So the task or the activity for this one is going to be prep cups. So I'll just put a text box there, and it's going to take 1 minute. Prep cups 1 min. So that can happen at any time. So it's just going to be 1 minute. So this is going to be a 2. I need to take that off. This is going to be a 2. 1 there, look. 2. And we'll fill this other section in, this other segment in when we're coming back down to find the latest event time. So far so good. Now this needs a little text box to explain it. There's no time allocated to this. So just put that down there. There's no time. No time. That's just a dummy connector. Back to this one. So the next one, so we're boiling it. Now we need to pour the water. So we can't pour the water until we've done this. So this is why that's like that. So bring another node on, connect it up, and then the text box says pour water, text, pour water, and pour is just 1 minute, pour 1 min, so that's 6, and then this needs to be 7, so you add that up, 7, and that's the next one, so that's 30, this is 40, number in 40, and this is be 50. So the next one after you've poured the water is just to finish it off with drink. Just go push another one on, I'm going to the second page here, connect it up, and then let's just bring this one down so it's lined up. I didn't connect that properly. So it's lined up, so this is 60, and drink is going to be 5 minutes, so I just need to make a bit more space, and I'll just change the page layout, go into layout and just have it as one page, okay, so we're a continuous page there. Right, so that's going to be drink, text box to drink, and it's going to be 5 minutes to drink, so drink tea 5 min. Take the connector text box off, so 5 min 7 and 5 is 12, so that's 12 minutes. This whole process is 12 minutes. So now you've got that, what you need to do now is work out the float. So you start off at the end, that's 12 minutes, and then you take off this duration here, so that's going to be 7, and then you've got to take these two from each other, so 7 from 7 is 0, so you're coming back again, that's 1 minute, so that's going to be 6 from 6 is 0, and then we've got this little arrow here where there's no time but it's still 6, so we're going back and we put 6 on there, no time, 6, you take 2 from 6, it gives you 4, so that's your float, 4, you've got 4 minutes float time, so the whole task is 5 minutes, it can go on any time during that task. So then we're coming back from here, we've got to take 5 minutes off this 6, which gives us 1, so that's 0 again, 1 from 1 is 0, and then we're back to the beginning. So you can see all the zeros, that is your critical path. Now this is a very simplistic diagram, I can assure you they get more complicated than this, but this is basically how you do it. You build it up from left to right with the times, and then you come back taking the times off to find out where the critical path is in your project plan. Now if I put some titles on this one, if I go to design and just put borders on, it sits in the background. Now you can see there I've got a problem, I'll just sort that out in a minute, but the background, if I just go making tea, that's the title, and then go back to page 2. Now I need to, you can't actually click on that because it's in the background. If I just do Control A, should be able to move that down so it all fits nice and neat. Now I said I need to make everything bold and black, so if I do Control A again, if I go back home, everything wants to be bold and everything wants to be black, so it just stands out a bit better. So there is your project plan, if you like. In this module I want to have a look at the business process model and notation diagram, BPMN, and as you can see I've got a link there, so I'm just going to click on that and create. So when you activate a diagram, you've got some pool or lane tools. So I'm going to drag a what looks like a lane, but in fact that is going to be a pool. If I click on that, because it's going to have more than one lane, if I move my mouse into the bottom left hand corner, I can create another lane, and then this becomes a pool, so there's more than one. You've got the title option there. If I just I'll just call it test. You can just label these by just double clicking on them, test 1 and then test 2. And then if you want a separate pool with one lane or more, you just drag that on at the bottom there and you can do exactly the same. Just call that customer customer 1, and so you set the scene if you like, and then you've got some basic stencils. You've got a gateway, decision, a task, intermediate event, an end event, and then some process, sequence, flows, message flows, associations, etc., etc. And you can have a collapsed sub process with a link to another sheet with another sub process on it. So let's just start this off. So what I want to show you in this video is what happens when you check the diagram, because this check diagram has got some rules to use. Now if you want to know what these rules are, you can find out these rules on the internet, but basically there are set rules for these types of diagrams that you should comply with, so everybody's got the same hymn sheet, and you can search for that and it will tell you what they are. But if you create a diagram that doesn't marry up to those rules, this will tell you, and sometimes it can be a bit frustrating because you think you've done it right and you haven't, because the diagram says there's an error message, or gives you an error message and you have to correct it. But let's see if I can do something really simple. Let's get a start event, and as with all of these, you can just use this little toolbar that appears there to give you a series of steps. So I'll just go for that one, and then I'll just pick an end. So that's a start, and then a task. I'll just call that task 1, and then an end. So that's very simplistic. So if I go to check diagram, everything is okay, which I would expect it to be. So now if I try and mess this up, so I'll go like this, I'll put a decision there. Now you can't just have that sitting in these type of diagrams, just sitting like that. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm assuming that's going to give me an error message, and it does. So it's basically telling you can't. Well, if you hover over this, it basically tells you what the issue is. So if I click on that, so if I click off that, for example, and then click on this one, it highlights. So that's the end, but I've got something after the end. And if I click on that one, it's telling me there that there's that's a decision, so you need something coming out both ways. So this thing here, this decision at the end, has caused a problem, and the design check diagram feature has picked that up. So I'll delete that off because I don't want that. And then I'm going to do the same thing underneath. I'm going to start an event, use this little tool to create a task, and then another task, and then let's do another one. So three tasks. Let's come up one. Now let's see what this does. If I do a check diagram, start and end I used, so it must have an outgoing sequence flow, so there's nothing coming off the end of this. It doesn't stop with that. So if I put an end on that, close that one down. So these, I'm not making any sense with what I'm doing here, but I'm just trying to show you how you can use these diagrams. Basically, very quickly you can create a diagram up. Let's have a decision on this one. So when you put a decision in, remember it's got to have something coming out. So let's go for a process and another process on that one, and then we'll go end. So that's how that would work. You'd have a decision coming out. Now you can, if you want, you can see you've got a shape here which is expanded sub-process or collapsed sub-process. So if I click on that, and let's say I want a collapse, see what happened there? Because I've got that selected, if I hover over this, there's the normal things, but then you get that option coming up, and that's the one I want. So I'll click on the line, and then it puts the line in for me. Now you've also got communication lines and sequence flows and things like that. So I've got a message flow there. So this sort of diagram, this process could be having a communication link into this. So send an email or something like that. So if I click on that one and then just hover over this, it'll see that there's a box underneath it, and then I just click on the line. And then what you can do is change the line type. If I right click on this line, it's at the moment a sequence, but now I want it to be a message, and then you get a dotted line. And if I just right click on that again, you can see you've got associating as well, which is association, that type of line. So same with these boxes. If you click into a box, if I right click on these box, you've got loop. Is this a standard loop? Does it do parallel or whatever? Or type. So this one, let's say this is a user. If I click on user, you get a little man in the corner, so it's a user going to do that. If I right click on this one, task type, user again, and let's say that this is an automated process, so I could say task type is going to be script, so it's just a computer script, and you get a different symbol. Now I've got shape data, the shape data window active, so you can see the standard boxes that's in there. So it's got the type there. So on this one I haven't got, it's a script, but let's put a loop on it. So if I put a loop on it, sequential loop, then it fills it in there for you as well. And again, you can edit these and add extra boxes if you want. Now this one I created was for a sub process, which I haven't got, but on the toolbar for process you've got create new or link to one that's already been created. So it's going to just create a hyperlink. So if I just click on create new, so it's gone to page 2 and it's created a hyperlink to page 2, and if I hold my control key down, that changes to the hand and I go to page 2, and there's nothing on page 2, but you could do another process there. So if I start an event, it won't like start an event, but you'll get the idea. And then I'll just do a few processes, a few tasks should I say, and then end like so. So I'll go back onto the page 1, that is a hyperlink to page 2. If I hold my control key down, I can click on that, and then you've got your sub process there. You can also create a sub process manually. So if I click on a shape and hold my control key down, see I've highlighted those, and then you've got this option. So I can create a sub process. It's created page 3. So on page 3, that's all dropped onto there, and again you've got a hyperlink control key to that page like so. And if you wanted to put a off-page reference to get back, you can do, so you're not jumping back between pages. You just search for off-page reference up there and then put it on there and get it to link to whichever page you came from, which in this case was page 1. And the other thing you can do is, if you wanted to, let's do it on page 3, you can highlight shapes. So let's just highlight shapes, and you can add a container to that shape. So what I've done there is I've just right clicked and add to new container, and then you've got a heading, I'll call it testing for example, and then that container's there, and they're in that container. You can move them out, so I didn't click on that, which is not great. I'll do undo. If I right click on this, you've got container, fit to contents, and if I right click again, you've got container and other options there, lock container, and then things shouldn't move out. That one is not in the container, so it's just those 3, which will stop you adding anything into the container, and that's not a great example of this diagram. Now, because I've been messing about with this and not really paying much attention to what I'm creating, I can guarantee when I click on the process option and check diagram, it's going to come up with something. So script or manual tasks, yeah, because it's not liking that. Must not have an incoming. Let's have a hover over this. Let's click on that one. When start and end events are used, a task or collapse sub-process must have an outgoing sequence flow unless it is a compensation activity. So there's nothing coming out of that, so that's okay. So we'd have to correct that. Now if I just close that one off, and let's go back to page 2. Page 2's got a little diagram that we did in page 3. So this is just a very quick look at this type of diagram. So normally it's referred to as a BPMN diagram, and you get it from the start menu and flowcharts. So hopefully that was of use to you, and if the first time you've had a look at that, go on the internet, search for it, and you'll get loads and loads of information of how to use these diagrams. But in this module I want to show you how you can create a work breakdown structure. So on the screen I've got an example of what I'm going to recreate, and what I've done is I've created simple shapes, flowchart shapes, and used data graphics to simulate the information I want to appear in the diagram. And I've also used a custom shape, which is this one, which I've created from scratch. So I'll just delete that one, and I'll recreate this diagram on a separate page. If I just go for new page, and there we go. Now before I do this, I came into the basic flowchart shapes area and I edited the process shape. So let's just do that. I'll drag that on. Now when you drag that on, the shape data that you get is this default shape data. So if I just close that down for a minute, remember you can get shape data from the data tab if you've got this version, or view tab if you haven't, and then task panes, shape data, and it either sits docked like that, or it might sit like this, or wherever in your document. It doesn't matter, but I like it docked. These are the default fields that you get. I want to change this to replicate what I've got on this shape. If I go into that one, where I've just got name, budget, and work percent, and I might just put the percent symbol there on this one. So let's just delete that one. Now to do that, you need to right click, data, define shape data, and then you get rid of the ones you don't want. So I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want any of these really. So I'll get rid of all of them. Then new, so the first one's going to be name, new, second one's going to be budget, and that's going to be a currency field, and new is going to be just percentage work of the overall total of work. I want that, I'll just leave it as a label, and that's going to be a string as well. Now if you want to set the sort order, if you put 1 there, 2 for budget, that's the second position, and 3 for the percent, that's the order that will appear in this list. So if I click OK to that, I get these 3 things in the right order. So that's the shape data. Now what I want to do is use data graphics to put information in here. That is on the data tab and advanced data graphics, and that's the one I've already done, so I'm going to create a new one. And you've got new items, so the items will be these 3 items here. So for this to work, you need to have the items named in shape data. So the first one, I want the name to appear as text, and I don't want it on the right, I want it on the left at the top, and I do not want the label. So not shown, not shown. Click OK, and that's that first one. Second item I want is the budget field, so it's going to be budget. I want that as text as well, and I want that on the left but in the middle. And again, I don't want no label. It's up to you if you have labels or not. OK to that one. And then the last one, new item, is obviously going to be the percent, and this time I'm going to use a data bar, and I've got data bar 1. You've got different options there, progress bars what I want, and label position top not shown. I don't want the label shown. OK. Now OK to that. Yes, I do want it on here. And now we've got something not quite right there. I don't want that there, so let's go back and edit that. Edit data graphic. Edit this one. Let's just go for a data bar instead of that. Data bar 1, not shown. Alright, okay, I didn't change this. Left, bottom. So we'll go back to progress. Okay, so that's what I forgot, I think. Click OK, click OK. That's it. And I want the font color to be white on this blue. It's totally up to you though. White. And that one can be white. I also want it left. I want that one left as well. Left. So okay, that looks good. Let's just test this now. So if I click on this, So name, I'll just call that main for now. Budget and 34. There we go. Happy teddy bear. Great. So now, because I'm going to use this and put it into my stencil, I need to get rid of this test data I just did. Get rid of that. So now it's clean, and I can push it into my stencil, and I'll call that WBS1. WBS1. Now, if you don't know how to get a stencil, it's just a case of going to more shapes, new stencil, or open what you've already created, and you can just add things into it and save it to wherever you want to be on the computer. So now I've got my first shape, which is edited how I want it to be. I can now start adding things into this. So on the other section I had 4, on page 1 I had 4 sections. So these are the headings: planning, design, fabrication and construction. So I just need to do that. So I'll just bring these on. You see the lines line up to make sure you've got it correct, and then you can just set it out how you want it to be. You can adjust it later on. Now the connector needs to come from this top shape to each one of these, and you might have to mess about with this a little bit. I definitely don't want it to look like that, so I'll push that up a bit. That's better. And then connector again wants to come out of the same area into this, and click away, and then you'll get the connector tool again coming down into this one. Click away, get the connector tool again, and then come across into this one. So you get the lines set up how you want them, nice and neat. So these 4 are going to be the headings, so I'll just change the fill to green, and then you need to put the information in for each of these headings. So the first one was planning, and now this is where the shape data window comes in. So that's planning, and then you give yourself a budget for planning, put a capital on that. So the budget would be, say, 2,000, I think I did the other one, and it's 2% of the overall project. Now I haven't put the title on the top one, what's going to be build a house and a budget of 200,000, and that would be 100% of the cost. There's different ways of doing these work breakdown structures. It's up to you how you do it. This is the way I'm doing this one. So now underneath planning, I need to put some other shapes. So if we go back to page 1, I had clearance and permissions, so that's what I need to do there. So again, if I click on this, put the connector tool on, bring that one over, lines it up for me. And then take that off, and then you can put the titles in the shape data. So this was planning, so clearance, and the cost, the budget has to be adding up, these two have to add up to that, so that's going to be 1,000, and it's I've said that was 2%, that looks a bit low, that's 5%, okay, so I'll change that to 5, put that to 5, and then this one can be 3 of that 5, and the next one down can be 2 of that 5, and again the budget would be 1,000, like so. And then what's the other one? Permission. So I need permissions. That's the title for that one. And this is basically permission, how you do this. So that's that one. So the next one has 2 is it. So site, this is design, sitemap and drawing. So title is design. The budget for this was 8,000, and again it was just 5% of the total. And then you've got 2 shapes to come out of this. So connector tool back on, drag the shape across, you get the lines lining it up, and then the next one like so. Have a quick look what the titles are. Sitemap drawings. So the first one, take that back off, sitemap, press tab, that's going to be 4,000 and it is going to be, let's go for 2.5, and then that one is going to be drawings, press tab, 4,000 cost, press tab, 2.5%. That's it. Now this one, the third one, was fabrication and construction. I'll just do these two so I don't keep having to flick back. So fabrication and construction. Okay, so how many's fabrication got? It's got 3 shapes. So click on that one, activate the connector tool, just bring them on to make sure they're all lined up. 1, 2, 3. These little arrows down the right hand side telling you you've got it evenly spaced. So there's the 3, and I might as well do construction while I'm at it. That's just got 2. So 1, 2. And take the connector tool off, and then you fill in these in. So you've got external builds, internal builds, spelled that one wrong, internal builds and testing. So external, external builds, internal builds and testing. Now the fabrication phase was £100,000, so let's put that in there. Let's go back. 100,000, 50, 40, 10. So 50,000, 40,000, 10,000. So these have to add up to that. No, that's not right. I'll add that again. So this is going to be 10. Here's another 0 on that. And this is 50% of the entire project. So click on that, 50% in there. And that one's 40%. I might as well do that while I'm at it. 40. So 5, 5, 10, 60, 100. That's what that's got to add up to this. So then external builds is 25, 15 and 10. So again, these have got to add up. So 25%, 15% and 10%. That adds up. Now back to this one. So we've got phase 1 and phase 2, 45, 45. That's fairly straightforward. So phase 1, construction, and phase 2. Now the budget for both of these is what half of whatever this is. So this was 100, 110, 90,000. So let's go for 90,000. 90,000. So phase 1 is 45,000. Phase 2 is 45,000. And then the percentage is 20 and 20, so it adds up. And that's basically how you do a work breakdown structure diagram using Visio, using your custom shapes. This is the key, I think. So there's lots of, if you go on the internet, there's lots of different styles for this, different types. You've got a phased base work breakdown structure, which is slightly different. This is a better example, I think, is a deliverable based work down. So you've got all the deliverables listed under each of the headings and how they fit into the overall picture of this, which is build a house, 200 grand, 100% of the work will complete that. Now, stencils, when I teach this to my groups, are the key, I think, to using Visio to its best potential. You can customize any shape and then utilize that in any diagram. This session I want to have a look at a data flow diagram. So you can see it here in recently used diagrams. But if I come down and show you where it is, it's in software and database. If I go into there, and then you've got the data flow diagram. Click on that, create, and it gives you a simple stencil. So you haven't got loads of stencils. So basically you've got an external interactor. So this is where the database sits in a system. It's not actually the processors or the people who do the job. So first off, I'm going to create an external interactor, and I'm going to zoom my screen up a little bit so we can see what's going on. So the process I'm going to use is an inquiry or a booking for a training course. So if I just type this, double click in there, just customer, that's the customer. So then the customer is going to come in to an entity. This is just a means of, you can either get circular ones or these rectangular ones, but I'm just going to create this and start numbering this. So this is just a process really. So the process will be the booking. That's the booking. So the data comes in. So connector comes in, and as soon as you move to this shape, you can see there's lots and lots of different connecting points there. A lot more than you would normally get on some of the other shapes, because this is a data flow diagram, so you can basically have data coming in and out from the same shape. There's lots of connection points on this, which is great. So when the booking comes in, it comes in two forms actually. So I've already made a mistake there. So it comes in via telephone or email. So I need to do two options. So I'll go telephone, and then another one, email. I'll just move this out of the way in a minute. Let's just move that over there. So that's email, like so. So if I just get rid of this link, push it into there, and then I need another connector to go into that one. Don't like the way that's doing that, so let's have a quick look what's happening there. Yeah, thought so. So one line from that one, snap it onto there, and I want another one coming in, take it from a different connector point into email. So those are the two main flows, and then they come into this process there. Now from that process, just take that off for a minute, we have some data storage going on here. So what happens is you have a data storage going on. So that would be, the email would sit in the, I'll call that the database. So the record would be created in the database, and it would go into a specific table. So a table within that database, if you like. So if I call that new customer, so that would go into the new customer table within that database, like so, and it is actually going into the database, so I'll just put it like that. So whichever way the data comes in, customer telephones, so I'll change this actually to inquiry. Inquire. So they've inquired, it goes into their new customer table. Right, so from there, if they book a course, it's another process. So let's say this is the booking, so this will be 2.0, and booking. So they are going from new customer to book. So I'll come out of there into booking. Take that for a minute. So they booked the course. what happens there is another process, so they would get a confirmation of booking. So this will be this bit at the top there, 3.0. You don't have to do this, but it's confirmation of booking. Now this is not a simple process. You have to check this over and over again that the actual flow of the data is correct. So confirmation of booking will come from there to there. So let's do that. And it will also come out of the database. Now this is where the lines get a bit tricky. So you're using the database to do this confirmation booking. And then from the confirmation of booking, it goes back to the customer. Let's go back to that one there. So that's the communication line there. See, it gives you nice little bridges there, so it looks quite cool. Now, confirmation of booking. So the next stage would be deliver the training. So what happens there? So you go and do the training. So this is going to be 4.0. Call it just training. And then after training, you're going to have an invoice. So let's do the invoice. Just get it lined up a little bit with the customer. So this is going to be 5. So this is the simple processes here. Invoice. Now, I might not have enough space here. Let's have a look what I've got. Yeah, I have. So the invoice, let's do the invoice first. The invoice goes to the customer. So from the invoice, I'll just go straight up to the customer. And it also comes out of the database. So the database comes out of that. So I need to move this out of the way a little bit. The actual event of delivering the training. So when you confirm the booking, you deliver the training. So delivering training has got venue booking. So the data would be to, there's one missing there. So this could be, let's call this venue booking. And the venue booking also comes out of the database. Come out of that one. Stick it into the top of there. Venue booking. And then that would be, then there would be training there. So entity. I'll make that, this will have to be 5 and I have to change that number. 5.0 training. And just put a, see, book the training, inform the customer, and then from the training the invoice is generated. So training, once the training is complete, the invoice is generated. So that is a email back to the database, or it's just a process that people would be filling in there. And then I need to change that number because it's the same as that, so put that to 6.0. So now what you do is you go through this process in your head and you check that this is the right flow. So it's the data. I think the issues you get is confusing the actual data path to the processes themselves. So the telephone call, customer may do a telephone call, comes into in this group. From there you put it into the database as a new customer, and then you confirm the booking, and then the confirmation of booking goes back to the customer, and then through a confirmation of booking you are booking the venue, so there should be a line coming down there as well. It's the database that's generating this, but if I push a line down to the venue booking, and venue booking, you are then delivering the training, and from there that generates an invoice, and the invoice comes from the database, so that's where that's coming from there, the database, and then finally that goes back to the customer. So that's a very simplistic quick look at a data flow diagram, and with your own diagrams you can make these as complicated or as simple as you wish. The symbols are quite straightforward. This is one type with a rectangle. There is another one that uses circles. It's totally up to you, but it's the flow and the data stores that you would have. So in my particular business, I've just got one database and a table for customers, and I have got a table for invoices as well, actually. So I could add an extra data store there, and instead of, in fact I will just do that right now, and I'll put it over here just in case. So invoice table. Now once you've got all the connections, I think the best thing to do then is, so that would go into the invoice. That's a data, the invoice gets stored in there, which is part of that database. So I've got to go back up there to the database, put it into the top. So you can see this can get quite complicated if your layout's not correct. And if I move, for example, that database down the screen into this space, it may make the diagram better or worse, and I'm not sure if that does. So let's just push it down to the bottom. Maybe that's a bit clearer. Possibly a little bit clearer, because then that connector there doesn't have to go on the top. It can go, where can I put that? Down the bottom maybe. Yeah, so even just moving it simply down there like that makes it a little bit tidier. And to be fair, the venue booking would also be stored in a bookings table, so I could put that in there. Bookings table, it's decided to stick itself there. Don't really want this to be part of that, to be honest. Get off. So from there you would do a connector to your bookings table. That's where it's stored, and that also goes to the database, like so. And basically that's all I'm going to do, because I'm just messing about now. That's an example of a data flow diagram, so I hope you enjoyed that and got the gist of it, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for your time. In this module I want to have a quick look at fault tree analysis. So I'm on the new tab, and although you can see it there, it lives inside the business section. So I'm going to click on business just to get you there. This is how you'd have to do it on your machine, and there it is. This is what we're going to do, this diagram. Have a quick look at this. So I've clicked on that, and then I'm going to click create, and we get some stencils as always, quick shapes, some basic shapes, arrow shapes, and the fault tree analysis shapes. And as I've said before, you can bring any stencil from any other template into this if you wish, and if you've got your own stencils like I have there, loads of them, you can open them and bring them into this. But what we're going to do is we're going to create a fault tree analysis on a model aircraft crash. So first of all, I'm going to bring in the event. Now you can type in there, so model aircraft crash, that's what we're going to call it. Spell it right, aircraft crash. Now you've got the normal connecting icons coming out from the sides, above and below, that you can see there. So what I want to come out from this one is an OR connector. So that one there is an OR connector, but you've got different types of OR connectors. You've got a basic one there, and a basic and a basic event, and then you've got these different ones. So rather than, when I click on that one, which one's that bringing out? That is bringing the basic one, so that's okay. So I want OR there, and then I want 3 events. So what I need to do is, coming out of there, I haven't got the event, I've got a smaller task there. Look, it's coming out with the diamond shape, which is an undeveloped event. I want actually to bring in some more of these, so I'm going to activate, if I go back to home and click on the connector tool, if I then bring in an event, I should have kept that clicked actually, so let me just click that, do that again, delete that one off. keep that one clicked. Click on the connector tool and then drag the event in like that. Click that again and drag another event in like so. So 1, 2, 3 I want. So bring another. Oops, nearly didn't do it right. Click on that one and bring another one in like so. And then you end up with 3 events. You can position these, reposition these across. It's totally up to you how you do that. It's not set in stone that you have to do it like I've just done. But as you get used to messing about with Visio, you'll find all sorts of little quirks that cause you a bit of grief. So the 3 main events is going to be loss of control for this one, and then the middle one is going to be loss of comms, and the last one's going to be hit object. So those are your events. Now underneath there, each of these I need an OR symbol, so I can now go back to this one and get my little OR. It's shoving that down a bit far, well, a bit further than what I want anyhow. So I'm going to move that up a little bit, and I want OR on this one as well. Undo, don't want that. That one, OR, and then shove that one up in line with the other one. Get the right symbol, otherwise you're moving all sorts of stuff. Just going to put the grid line on this so I can see the grids, and then just move that up in line with that. You get the lines coming across telling you you've got it in the same sort of place, and then same with that one. Could just move that up and so you get these little green lines. So they're all lined up. That's okay. So coming out of loss of control, I want 2 more. So I'm going to click on that. Back. I've actually got the connector tool there. Actually, I'll click it on there. So I want another event. So I'm going to have 2 events coming out of here. Click on that one and click on that one, like so. And then I'm going to do the same with the other one. So bring out the events, connector tool. Oops, nearly did it again. It's quite easy to forget that, and then bring that one across like so. I'll fix that in a minute. And then the last one, and click back on that, bring that one across. So now I need to fix this. I need to take off that one and just shift it to the side. In fact, I'll put it on the top. I need to shift that end to the bottom, like so. And this probably needs to go back a little bit. That's why it's not doing that. I don't want to spend half my life doing these. I've got to get these arrows off. Pick that one up, take it to the bottom. Don't know what's going on with this set. There's always one that plays up. All the other ones are joining in nice and neat in the side. This one's deciding to do whatever it wants to do. So I'm going to get rid of it altogether and do it myself. It's coming down from there to there. Take that off. That'll do. Just move that to the right a bit using the arrow key. Alright, so this first one is going to be, so you've got loss of control, and I've got two events here. Power loss, and this one can be mechanical failure. I'll just put mech failure. And then this one is going to be frequency jammed, freak jammed. You can type the whole thing if you want. And then after frequency, antenna, AE, broken. And then this one, the last one, is going to be hip pylon. So hip pylon, which would probably do catastrophic damage to a model airplane. Hit bird. And this is basically what you do. You just build up your diagram like this. So now coming down again, I want an AND. So we haven't got an AND. We haven't had an AND. So from power loss coming out of this one, so power loss, so I haven't got anything coming out the bottom of there, so I put my connector on. I want an AND coming out of the bottom of there, and coming out of the bottom of there, I don't want any of these. I want a oh yeah, I do, I want that one, a circle. Take that off for a minute, come down, just push that up and make it go like so, and I do want two circles, but let's just see if I can get another one coming out. Shove that up next to it and play around with the lines forever and ever. Oh, by magic that's done it. Okay, that'll do. Just bring that one in a little bit. So this one is going to be battery replaced. Two T's in battery. And this one is going to be battery charged. Battery charged. So this is how you do the diagram. This is how the flow works. You can put OR in these boxes if you want. People might not know what they mean. And this one's AND. That shape is AND. It's totally up to you. So this is the what you're going to do. You're going to do that and you're going to do that. So if mechanical failure, I've not got anything coming out of that. Antenna broken. I've got something coming out of there. So I want another. It would be another OR, so I'll just come down one more level. So that's finished, that one. This one, click on it, hasn't finished. It's deciding not to give me the arrows now. Okay, so I have to do it manually. So what I want coming out of there is another OR, not an AND, OR gate. So that should have come out. There's it lining up with the AND over there, lining it up. Take that off. And then coming out of this, I want two of these again. One, click, and just move that up in line with this. And then coming out of that, I want another one. It's not going to give me it, is it? Just move that over there a bit. Yes, it is now. It does. There you go. Shove that up there, line that up, bring that across, and put OR in there. Put OR in there, and in there. And then, what is the solution for this? Oh, hang on, I'm getting ahead of myself. I said OR, didn't I? I want an OR. That is OR. So OR. I was right the first time. So this is going to go down another level. So antenna broken on the plane. So AE for the shortcut for antenna, but broken on the plane, and or AE broken on TX for transmitter. A couple of military terms there. Oops, I didn't want that. And now, so these would have to have an end to keep coming down, but basically that's how you create these fault trees, fault tree analysis, and work it out how you want to do it. And it's a nice, pretty little diagram. And that's the end of this session. So hopefully that was of use to you, and I'll see you in the next one. Session. What I would like to do in this module is have a look at how to do value stream mapping. So here I have a basic one on the screen, but I'm going to recreate this from scratch using the file new option. So file new, so this is what you would do to start. Now you can see it sitting there on mine because I've just been into it, but if I hadn't been into it, it would be in categories and under business, and then you have to just find it in this list, and there it is at the bottom on mine, value stream map. So click on that. It asks me to create it, and I start off with a blank screen. So I want, first of all, top right you go customer, and top left supplier. So type into that one, supplier, and customer on the right, customer, and then I want a control, production control, sitting in the middle of those two. So I'll just push that in there and call it control. Just bring the screen down a little bit, center that slightly. So I'm just going to call this one control, but you can call it whatever you want. So this is the communication part of the value stream map. So let's put some communication lines in. So there's a symbol indicating an email, maybe some electronic communications. So let's say it comes from the customer. So the customer might be ordering something, and then you've got an email coming from control into the suppliers, and that is a very simplistic communication line. The next line is the actual production line. So we now need to create some processes. So in this example, I just want to create 3 very simple processes. 1, 2, just line it up there slightly, 3, and this is going to be build machines. This one is going to be install software, and this one is going to be user profile. Now you can add some information on each of these. So data table is what I'm going to put under each of them. This first one, make it a little bit wider, and then I'm just going to double click in there, and CT cycle time for this one is going to be 1 hour, and then just make a space there. Maybe I've got some setup time which is 5 minutes, and you can put some other information in there if you want, but for this example that's it. And then another one for that one. Now obviously if you're doing this all the time, you would create a stencil, so you've got these shapes straight away already set up and the right size and everything. So cycle time for installing software is going to be 2 hours, and setup time is also going to be 5 minutes. And then the last one, installing the user profile, which takes a little bit longer. So let's say the cycle time on this one is going to be 4 hours. Setup time still going to be 5 minutes. Now obviously you don't just type this stuff, you find out by having some sort of analysis in your factory how this all happens, and then you set these things up, and then you can identify where you can save time. So let's have some inventory. Let's say there's some stock comes in there, and we have some stock sitting there. Move it up a little bit. In fact, if I'd go view, put the grid lines on, might help me. And some stock sits there for a length of time. So that one can move up a little bit so it's on the same line, and then that one can move up so that's on the same line. And then we have stock at the end, sits in the factory before it actually gets shipped to the customer. So shipment arrows come in now, so we're going to get stuff coming in from the supplier to sit in the factory. It comes in by truck, but you could have any icon there, and then it goes out by truck as well to the customer. Snap it on like that, and then we can put some numbers on these. So let's say we have 1,000 machines turn up. Then at this phase usually there is 500 sitting there with 100 there, and usually 400 ready to ship, and that's a flow that goes through the factory. Now that is the production side of it. This is 100% accurate, guys, but obviously you'd have to make sure it was in your situation. The last part of this diagram is to put a timeline across the bottom. So timeline segments are these. So you line them up with your processes. You move that little yellow circle. Now the time for this process was 1 hour, and then you need another segment, so you get another segment and you join it on, and again you readjust that so it sits neatly underneath the process. So for this one it was 2 hours, and then another segment, and you line that one up, and this one becomes 4 hours, and that's the segments nearly lined up. Sort of missed this one off a little bit, just glue that in. And at the end you have a timeline total, which you stick at the end, and you can bring that in a little bit. Just take that back that way. So you add up the dead time and add up the process time. So the process time we've already done, so that's 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours altogether, 4 hours. So process time is 7 hours. Downtime, let's say this stuff sits in the factory for 2 days. It sits at that process for 3 days, and it sits at this process for 2 days, and it sits there ready to ship for 2 days. So altogether you've got 2, 5, 7, 9 days downtime, 9 days. So basically things aren't earning any money for 9 days. You've only got a processing time of 7 hours, so that's quite a short time. So if this was a true representation of your processes, you would be looking at not having all this stock sitting waiting for this length of time and trying to shift it quicker. How you do that is totally up to you guys. You'd have to work that out yourself. But this is a very simple example of a value stream map, and if you want to know any more about this, you can learn quite a lot about it already on the internet. There's loads and loads of diagrams showing you how this all works. But if this was how your process was, you could then save this as a template, and then you start from this point and then you fill in these boxes with the relevant bits of information. But that's all I want to talk about today. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next one. In this module, I want to have a quick look at creating an EPC diagram, an event-driven process chain. Now you can see on this Visio diagram here, I've got a completed chain. So what I want to do is delete this and recreate this for you. So these are event-driven. So this example I'm going to show you is a booking example for my own business. When I receive a booking, the process that triggers and how it works. So let's get rid of all of this. Just delete that off and create a new one. So we're starting off, I've got the little screenshot of what it actually was there. So you start off with an event and you end with an event. So if I bring an event on to the screen, it gives me another page. Can I just make this a little bit bigger so I can see what I'm doing? So you've got down the left hand side your normal stencils, EPC diagram shapes. So if you're familiar with an EPC diagram, these will be familiar with you. You've got or and options and functions, process paths and stuff like that. So this is going to be the inquiry. So this is the starting event. So you've got an inquiry. Now when I click away from that, you've got, as always with these shapes, options coming out of the left, center, right of different shape types. So the first one I want is this one, which is a function shape. So this is something that's going to happen, and I'm going to type in there request, a respond to request. So I've had a inquiry, respond to request. Now the response to request is two things have got to happen. I'll usually send a training needs analysis, and I also send the course outline. So this symbol is an AND symbol. So if I just create myself a process symbol and type in there send training needs analysis, and then put the AND symbol in between that, so it'll just snap into position. And then I need another box underneath that that's going to be send course outline. So if I just do that on that one coming out of there, send course outline. Now that's not in the right place at the minute, so I need to change that. Typing away, nothing's happening. Send course outline, and then that's send TNA, send TNA, and this arrow needs to break. I need to just shift that over to there and get it into there. That's it. Now coming out of this one, I need another extra step. So identify level. So I send a training needs analysis, and that usually gets filled in and gives me an idea of what the level is. Identify level, and then that I don't want that coming out at the bottom there. That's the end of that little bit. I'm going to link that in a minute to the next bit coming down from here, because we have another function. I'll just push that up a little bit. This is going to be, in fact it needs to go down there, course booking, actually booking the course. Course booking would then have this information feeding into it, so I need to put a connector on there coming out of this one to decide what level this is going to be. Just take the connector tool off, point that on. So now I've got to identify dates and location. Now the location's got two choices there, so let's come out over the bottom of there. So identify dates, let's push this up a bit. I'll just call it ID dates so it's not so long. Identify dates, and then you're going to have another process coming out of there. So I'm going to send the dates. Send the dates, and then underneath this one I need another process path. Push it up a little bit. So it's quite quick to create these, and location. So ID location, and then this is shot off down below. I don't want it down there. I want it up here. So make that level. So now send location. So I'm asking the person which location, and there's two options. It's an OR option I need here, so it's still a process, so I'll put the process on. So on-site is one option, or it can be, if I just get the OR, it can also be in the My Training site. So that's going to be on-site, and then this one's going to be training room. And again I need to just move this arrow from there to there, so it gives you the OR options. And then from this one I need to come back across. So after I've done identified location, I need another event, which is going to be deliver training. Sorry, I'm ahead of myself. Course booked. Course booked. And then underneath that, it's going to be deliver training. Deliver training. So that's the process. Now, coming out of, I need to come in from this one. So I need a line coming from on-site and one coming from training room. So let's just move across a little bit. Get myself a connector tool. Coming out from there, going to there. I don't want it sitting like that. I'll fix that in a minute. So one coming from this one, going to there as well. Put the pointer tool back on, and then let's try and sort these lines out. So where's this one gone? So let's pull that down like that. Pull this one down so they both go this. In fact, pull that other one up. That can stay there. Pull this one up, so it follows the same trajectory there. Can't have it like that. It's going to have to go on this side, and then push it up a little bit. That'll do. Okay, so back over this side. Now after delivered training, we have got training complete as an event. That's the final event. So training complete. And then out the side of that we're going to do some feedback, send feedback. We've got some equipment here, information and equipment, so I haven't got that option there, so I'll just have to drag it on there. This is just that comes into deliver training. I need computers and manuals, computers and manuals, and then I need to do I need to do a manual connector into deliver training. Put the pointer tool back on, so let's scroll back up, let's see where we're at. Okay, so now we're coming out of there, deliver training, we need to send invoice. So if I create one of those, type send invoice, from send invoice we're coming back up because we've got, while all this is going on, we've also got another function which is enter customer in DB database. So when you send the invoice, when I send an invoice, it comes out of the database, so I need a connector tool to go into the database like that. Pointer tool back on, just knot that across a little bit. So invoice is then, let's push this up. Invoice is, well, I've got two lines there. Okay, let's just move that across a little bit so it's not the same line, so that's coming in there. Seem to have a loose line there, let's get rid of that. So invoice, send invoice, invoice in. So coming out of the invoice, invoice received. So I'll come out of the side of that actually. Invoice received is a function. Let's just push it there. Invoice received, invoice received, and that looks like it's completed except for send feedback. So send feedback, that would come out of, I've already got send feedback, so that's going up into the database, so recording the feedback. Let's move this across a little bit. So coming out of there, I need a connector tool that's going to go back up into the database as a record, like so. So I think I've got everything. Just noticing this line's gone a bit pear-shaped, so this should have been a connected to, and it's not connected to that. Now it is. So moving across, that's alright, that looks the same. So we've got an and we've got an or, we've got functions, we've got an event to start the thing off, an event to finish the thing off, complete training. So that's just a very quick, simplistic, because it's my business, I'll just get rid of that, simplistic EPC diagram. Nothing too technical about that at all. And when it's your own business, you can basically say what you like and create what you like, as long as it makes sense to other people if you've got more than yourself in your business. Fortunately, in my case, it's just me, so I can make this diagram say what I want. But actually, that is basically what happens when somebody inquires for a course. That's the process that I go through, and the decisions that we make between us, and then the delivery of the course and the feedback is the last step. So hopefully that was of use to you, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you for your time. What I would like to look at in this module is how to create a pivot diagram in Visio. So this on the screen is a pivot diagram where you've got some source data which is coming from an Excel spreadsheet with some summary information in that spreadsheet, so some fields that you can add up, spend. And then the pivot diagram is showing information by quarter, by department, and by personnel. Now I can do all of this in one, what's called node, but I've done it in three separate ones, and I'll show you how that works. Now on this particular one, I've got a filter which this is the HR department, and there's lots of locations, but I've just filtered it to Belper. And on this one, Gary Reid, I've broke it down so I can see Gary Reid's quarterly sales. So I want to recreate something like this on a new file. So to do that, you go File, New. Now the pivot diagram is sitting there because I've been using it, but if you haven't used it, it sits inside the business category, and then it's near the bottom on the left there, pivot diagram. Click Create, and then it will start a wizard, and you select the type of data that you're trying to bring across. So I'm bringing an Excel spreadsheet, so I'll click Next. Now if you haven't actually done this already, it will not be in this list, but mine is. You will have to browse for it. Next. Now I've got a spreadsheet set up that's just got one sheet called raw data, but on that sheet I've named the actual data range data, so I can just select data. Then next. At this stage you've got the option to deselect any field that you don't want to bring into your diagram. So at the moment I'm going to leave all those as they are, but you could tick some of these off if they're not relevant. So I'll leave that as that. Okay, and then next. And then that finishes the wizard. So you can click Finish, and then it will drop a pivot node, what's called a pivot node, onto your diagram. So there you go, pivot node. And above that there's a title which is quite hard to see. If I change the font to black, you should see that, which just says data. Now this one has got it summarized by dates because that's what's ticked there, but I'm going to take that off and tick spend and take the tick off that one. So now it's saying the total spend. Change the title to quarter spend because that's what I want to do first off, and click back onto this. When you do a pivot diagram, you get a tab at the top that says pivot diagram where you've got some information there. Now normally you would have this legend coming up, and if I just zoom in a little bit, it just tells you basically where the file, the data source is coming from and the last time it was updated. I don't want that on there, so I'm just going to take that off. The title is there, title on off, and then you can just move this around as you wish. Now what you have on the left hand side are categories, and you can add these categories to your top node. And I want to add first off quarters, so I'll click on quarters, and it's going to add the quarterly totals in for me for this company. And while it drops them in, the alignment is up to you. You can change the alignment or direction from these two buttons. You can move things left and right, so if I wanted the first quarter to be, or the second quarter to be first, I could move it left. I don't, so I'm going to leave it as it is. And then you can add categories, additional categories underneath these ones. So for example, if I want to look at department underneath this one, I'll click on department, and then it should drop the information in there. There's quite a few different departments, so sometimes it can take quite a bit of time while it's trying to get the data. You just have to be patient and wait for it to come in. So there's the data. Now it's all coming underneath across the bottom like that. I don't really want it like that, so this is where you need to play around with alignment. So if I try top, then that's good. I like that. It's going down as opposed to across, but it's totally up to you how you set that up. So that's basically how that works. And if I want to do a filter on this one, so I've still got it selected, so I can click on filter, and then it's wanting me to click on department. So if I click on filter, I want it to filter just the HR department. So if I click equals and then HR, okay, it should get rid of all the other ones and just show me the HR department. And then you can then add additional fields, or categories should I say, into this one. So if I click into the HR department, and what can I put in there? Let's try colleague. I don't know who's going to come up there. There may be one or more people working in the HR department. It doesn't matter, but it's just going to put the information in for you, and then you can collapse it out of the way if you don't want that information and add something else in there, or remove the filter. So there's only Chris Teal that's in there, So it's one person per department, I think, in this data source that I've got up, but quite often that wouldn't be the case. It would be a lot more than that. Now, if you suddenly don't want any of this data, you can collapse it out of the way. So let's say I don't want this anymore. I can just click on, I don't want Chris Steele. I click on collapse. We'll get rid of him. And if I don't want the HR showing, I can click collapse again. It gets rid of the HR. And if I don't want them, I can click collapse again and it will get rid of those. So I'm back to square one. So let's try and do it a different way. Let's go for location. There's quite a few locations. So that's going to be quite a long list, and you can see how it drops it in there. So location, so I've got Alnwick there, even though it looks like it's Alnwick, it's pronounced Alnwick. Now let's see, I want the quarters in there. Again, it comes up with that because I'm not clicking on the title. Quarters. Okay, it's lying to me. Quarters. It's very finicky in terms of where you clicked on the box. So it should drop the quarters in. So there's only 1 quarter spend in that particular town. So that's down to how this source data is. So there's no spend in the second, third, fourth quarters in that particular place. If I do that for Ashington, drop it down, see how it works. Now there may be more than 1 quarter in Ashington. No, there's not. So it's all dependent on how the source data is. I'm trying to think where there might be some more than 1. Maybe not. I think these have all. Try Derby quarter. Just thinking about it. Taking a little bit of time. So while it's doing that, let's have a quick look at something else. There's only 1 in that one as well. Okay, so let's knock these off. Let's collapse that down. In fact, let's collapse it all down. So what you can do is you can have more than 1 node. So over on this side you've got shapes here. I can just pick it up and just drop it in at the bottom there, so it gives you a chance for another node. So I could maybe put a node there. It'll start the wizard again. I'll go and get the same data, but you could get different data if you've got different sources. I'll just follow this through and then finish. So that will do exactly the same. It's still an automatic alignment, so if I change this to spend as well, I don't want the date in there, and then just move this one across. Data 2, so the first one says quarters, so I'll call this departments. And find department. Okay, so what has it done there? That's sent that all the way down there, so I need to move this one. Just set that. And do this one by quarters. Change the alignment and zoom it down a bit. Change that font color. So department, quarterly spend. Let's just move this up to the top. Now what's happening, I think, is every time I do this the alignment's resetting itself, which is slightly irritating. And let's move department up there as well, because I'm going to do another one. This is slightly different to the first diagram I showed you, but it doesn't matter, you get the idea, I think. Just put it like that. And then if I drag another node on, I can have a look at personnel. Same thing, same process, data source, next, leaving it on that, next, finish. So changing that to spend, taking the tick off. I'll do the alignment first this time. So alignment from the top. In fact, I don't actually want the alignment from the top on this one. Let's leave it on the left, because I want to add personnel or colleague. So this is going to drop the colleagues in, hopefully, and not totally trash everything. Now don't forget, every time the source data changes, so will this data, if you've got it set up on an automatic refresh. So there you can see each person and what they've spent. And if I click on this and maybe just go a bit mad here, add a quarter. I should have done the alignment first, but it doesn't matter. You'll see how it works. Click back on there, change the alignment to top, so there it comes down, and then I'll leave that like, well, let's put location on this, change the alignment, well, the alignment will be left, but if I put location, see what happens. So the ability to collapse things out of the way, filter things, add extra nodes, manipulate the node, makes it a very useful tool and very simple to use once you get used to what it's doing and how it's changing things around. And when it does stuff like that, slightly irritating, because I wanted that to go left. There you go. So if I come back out on this diagram a little bit so you can see everything, that's so I've got 3 different nodes all looking at the same data source and taking up quite a bit of space actually. So if I just move this one onto that page, so it's over there, that one's not going to fit on one page anyhow, I don't think. If I just move it up to the top left hand corner anyhow, and then this one, all of this, if I just maneuver that the best I can to fit, it's not going to fit on 2 pages, but that's better. It's tidied it up a little bit. And then you've got, if you want, on the design options, you can select any of these. That'll colour the thing in for you, make it pretty or not pretty. Okay, and then if I zoom back in on that, you can see how that works. So this last one needs to just be named, just call it staff or something, which is a bit of an old-fashioned word nowadays. Just looking to see if there's a better colour scheme there. Modern, no difference really. But basically that's how you create a pivot diagram, and then how you can manipulate the pivot diagram to show you the data in a way you want. And don't forget, if you want to get rid of anything, you can just collapse it out of the way like that, and you can go back to your default node, so there's nothing there, and then you can just add it in again. And every time the source data changes, you either refresh manually or you've already set it up in options, as I said before. So hopefully that's been of use to you and you can get your head around that, and don't get frustrated when it's not doing it immediately, because there is a bit of a time delay sometimes when you do add categories, especially if you've got a large data set. So it's all down to the size of the data, I suppose, is how quick this will update. But that's the end of this session. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for your time.